Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Packers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay. We got Carly Ray in Wisconsin. We may have Jacob joining us shortly. We'll see how that goes. He may not be out of the clink yet, but we're going to get in here and talk some Packers, talk some draft. He's got a 7-round mock he wanted to hit on real quick. And then also we've got a bunch of stuff that we're going to hit on. The board is coming together. Been doing a lot of research and trying to compile data in terms of thresholds, athletic thresholds that the Packers are interested in. So we'll be getting to that. Obviously, we are live here on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can also check us out in podcast form if you search for Packernet Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. So let's waste no time and jump into just kind of giving everybody an idea of how the board is coming together and some of the things we're adding. You're going to notice a set of emojis over here to the right of everybody's name. I'm going to zoom in for just a second and show you guys. So as we start to put this board together, what these emojis mean are, you see the C here, that means they were a captain of their college team, which we know Goody puts a lot of emphasis on captain. In terms of free agency, I don't think it's as important coming out of college. But if you got two players with the same grade, obviously you would choose the team captain over someone who didn't, right? And if it was the same position, everything lined up. You see the wrestling emoji, that means they got a wrestling background. We've noticed that within the trenches, whether it's defense or offensive line, typically the wrestling backgrounds convert pretty well to football, especially at the NFL level. So we've got that. We've now got a new emoji, and Jacob is bucking on this one, Tim. He said he wants the flex emoji instead of the heart eyes. I said, listen, we know how Goody loves his athletic thresholds. So if a player has the heart eye emoji, we'll just call it the heart emoji, that means that they just about, if not completely meet the threshold, the athletic threshold for the Green Bay Packers at that specific position. Now, I want to mention this. Using AI tools and using everything at our disposal to try to find out who actually meet these thresholds and any other information we gather, it's not going to be perfect. So if you guys and gals spot something and go, that doesn't seem right, you check it, let us know. We're not up here on top of the mountain going, listen, little people, here's the info you need, like other people do. We're all collecting this data together as a fan base. That's why it's Packer Fan Total Access. So that's what the heart emoji will represent. You'll also notice the cheese emoji. That means the Packers have shown interest in that player. They might have met with them at the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Combine, whatever. In the past, I'd put where they specifically met them at the met with them, whether it was the Combine or what have you. That's just too much information to put on the board. It's going to get all cluttered up. So if they got a cheese emoji, the Packers have shown interest. You'll notice the target emoji. That's real simple. That means that's a top 30 visit. That, you guys know the Packers will have 30 visits they can have where they can invite people in, do their own athletic testing, things like that. Jaden Reed was one a couple years ago. And if you guys remember, 40 time wasn't so good at the Combine. Later on, the Packers drafted him. We find out at that top 30 visit, I believe it was, or a private workout at some point, he actually ran a faster 40. They had him clocked quicker, and they went with him. So that's what that means. I think that's pretty much all the emojis we have on there at the moment. So does that all make sense, Tim, Carly? Does that make sense how we've got that lined up there?
Yes. So we're looking for a guy with all of the emojis. That's what we're hoping for here. We'll see.
That's the visualization comes down to the person with the most emojis is probably a good sign, right? And what's really cool is using the search engine here, we can actually search by each emoji too. So if you go, hey, man, who's the best athletic threshold, then you throw that up. Now, I don't have all those in yet. We started this morning. I've been up since about 6 a.m. just going through data and everything, like the nerd that I am.
You've been up since 6 a.m., Clayton?
Yeah.
Good morning.
That was Lincoln's reaction when I came down the steps this morning. He was laying in the living room like, bro, you're not doing this. Yes, we are,
hey,
sir.
Clayton, do we have like a little legend somewhere in that? I don't know, like maybe the top line or something that just defines these for people who maybe miss that part of the show? Like on the Patreon group, they can see it.
We don't, but I can maybe put that in the Patreon group. You know what I mean? We'll get creative with that. I'll see if maybe on the very bottom line we can maybe add that in. You know what I mean? Just have, okay, this means this means that type of thing. But yeah. And anybody, if you got any questions in the Patreon group, you guys will have access to all this. We'll get you an updated board here real soon. You guys, if you have any questions at all, just fire them away. You can DM me in there. You can post it in our general chat, however you want to do it. Okay.
Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway?
So
I don't know if we have an answer to that question, but all the other ones we do.
Exactly. And Jacob was supposed to be on here with that mock. I don't obviously he ain't in here yet.
Mock draft morning. Let's go. Let's
run. No. We got plenty of other stuff to cover other than doing a mock draft. We'll save that for later. But again, as all this information comes in and gets put into the board, we'll make sure everybody's got everything they need. So let's do this, man. Let's shift gears. Let's jump over. I had a question that someone texted me, and it was from Crossfire, aka Mr. Jass. We found that out. So the artist formerly known as Crossfire is now Mr. Hugh Jass. Okay. So I love the creativity of our listeners, no doubt. So what I did was he asked me, I'm going to try to get this to where it makes the most sense. I think that'll work. So he asked me, he said, hey, bud, can we talk about the first round defensive tackles on the show sometime and go into what each player is good at? Which ones are 3 techs and prioritize pass rush over run, blah, 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 right? So he's kind of talking about the top defensive tackles. Where do they fit in? And this is where it gets tricky, because when you do an AI search, sometimes they'll grab a player and go 0 tech. That's where he played the most of his snaps. Well, that might have been what they played most of their snaps in their base defense, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was where their overall snaps were. So I went through and double checked today on PFF. And if anybody was in the B gap that was listed as a 0 tech, I changed it to a 3 tech. So we would know the majority of their snaps were in a 3 tech, probably because it was in a sub package. And then next to it, it may say nose tackle or something. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. So you'll notice the first thing mentioned here in this Patreon article, and this is what you get while we're here with our Patreon group, or things like this. When we do these detailed deep dives that we cover on the show, you guys have access to go back and kind of comb through it and pick it apart. Let me know, hey, man, that seems inaccurate, and we'll edit it as we go. So anyway, here is what Mr. Jass asked for, detailed look at each defensive tackle in this year's draft. So said, here's a list of defensive tackles for the 2025 NFL draft with each player's name, school, top 3 strengths from their scouting report, and their most common alignment, 0 tech, 1 tech, 3 tech, etc. Right? Based on their play style and usage in college during the 2024 season, these alignments reflect where they lined up most frequently, though many are versatile enough to shift across the line. So again, perfect example, Mason Graham right off the bat. Okay, you see where it says 3 tech. If I went back and double checked, that's the more accurate snap one right here. And if it's something that they were a nose tackle, you'll see it in the parentheses. It'll say nose tackle or something. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Mason Graham out of Michigan is the first one it talks about, and these aren't necessarily in the order of our board. This is just, the top defensive tackles in the draft. 3 tech, over the guard, using quickness and power to penetrate. Okay, it says he excels at pass rushing, anchors the run defense, disrupts plays consistently. That sounds like the perfect prospect, right? On our board, pretty much is. I mean, he's pretty close to it. Mason Graham's the top defensive lineman on our board, and I want to say, he's in the number 4 spot. So keep that in mind. He was the best guy around. Now, we don't talk about Mason Graham much because that would be just a dream if he fell to the Packers at 23, or if the Packers somehow, some way traded up, right? So I don't anticipate that happening. I don't think anyone does, but there you go. Next on the list is Walter Nolan. Again, not in any particular order in terms of where we've got him on the board, but here's what it says. He dominates with power, clogs running lanes, and is quick off the snap. His most aligned, it says, is 1 tech, shading the center, leveraging strength to control gaps. We all know Walter Nolan can play 3 tech as well. So there's a perfect example right there. Okay. Next on the list is Derek Harmon. We'll do it in increments of 3, and I'll get your all's take, so I'm not just reading to y'all the entire show here. Derek Harmon out of Oregon wins with hand fighting, mauls the trenches, explodes off the line, most of the line, 3-tech, a line over the guard, exploiting burst and hands. So out of those top 3 we've already talked about, and you see Kenneth Grant coming up. You guys got anything to add to Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, just anything?
I feel like Walter Nolan's probably a little more realistic to follow us, possibly. Again, though, if Goody's going to go D-line in the first round, I think I'm a little higher on Nolan than I am on Harmon from Oregon.
Yeah, definitely.
And Clayton, we've got a lot of new listeners and stuff, and I'm just wondering if you can give us a quick rundown on why a 3-tech is so valuable, why it's so hard to find a real 3-tech, and I think that'd be beneficial.
Yeah, so with 3-tech, it's real simple. Your 3-tech is your better pass rushing defensive tackle, and we know it's a passing league. So teams will place much, much more value on a pass rushing defensive tackle as opposed to, someone who's just going to anchor the line. Okay. So like if you got someone who is predominantly a 1-tech or playing a nose and a 34, playing that 0, think like TJ Slayton. Think of someone like that. Now you go look at people like Jalen Carter, right? Jalen Carter's a dominant force. He's one of those unicorns, right? Plays for the Eagles. He can move around on the defensive line, but boy, when they put him in that 3-tech, you're splitting the guard and the tackle. So what you typically force the defense to do is the edge on that side of the formation, you got to put your tackle on an island and double team with the center and the guard. You see what I'm saying? And it's really hard to do when they're in a 3-tech, you're on the outside shoulder of the guard. So that center can't necessarily get to that spot. If the edge and the 3-tech on that side rush outside, then that guard's on an island, and guards typically aren't great pass blockers, theoretically speaking. So they're going to get their butts kicked by a really good pass rushing 3-tech. Now with a 1-tech, if someone's predominantly a 1-tech, they line up in the A gap. It's a lot easier for that center to just kick over and help the guard. Now you got a double team. That's what happened to Kenny all year last year. But it kind of felt like it was by design. Why? Because we wanted to put Devontae Wyatt in that one-on-one situation as much as possible. So typically what happened throughout the year was you had a lot of chipping going on with tight ends and running backs on Rashawn Gary. You had a lot of double teaming going on Kenny by design. They wanted to occupy that double team. So Devontae Wyatt was freed up to rush the passer one-on-one most of the year. He had the highest pressure percentage according to Next Gen Stats of all of our defensive tackles. However, it wasn't dominant by no stretch of the imagination. I want to say it was like 9% or something. So if you go get a true 3-tech that can dominate that B gap, while that 1-tech, like Kenny, is occupying a double team, you can see how now they've got to choose, man, we got to keep the running back on the inside shoulder to help with the 3-tech as opposed to helping with Gary. Now, if you take Gary and put him on the opposite side of the formation, and now you've got a dominant 3-tech on the other side, they don't know whether to crap or go blind, so you just close one eye and fart. Like they're literally, okay, how do we block all these dudes? If Kenny, one way you can do that is to what we call shade or what we call it, fan the pass blocking to one side. Well, when you do that, guess what? That 1-tech is now freed up in a one-on-one situation, and that's where Kenny could penetrate him. Problem is Kenny's got a lot of tread on the tires coming in the league for so long, and I think his best football is behind him. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the way it seems anyway. That answer your question, Carla?
Yeah, that was great. I love nerding out about this stuff.
And Tim, if you got anything to add, buddy, you just you fire away, man. It looks
I was
like
just going to say, do you think Kenny's they're gonna move him to the nose since Slayton's gone now, and we might bring some more guys in? You think
would Kenny move to the nose? Is that what you said? So here's the thing: when you're in a 4-3, when you think nose tackle, you always think 0-tech, right?
Right.
Well, nose has been described to me as your nose tackle is the guy who plays closest to the 0-tech. So when you're in a 4-3, it's very rare in a 4-3, unless you're showing an odd front, that you're going to have a true nose
tackle, yeah,
playing 0. So Kenny was the nose last year. That's still a big misconception that people don't think he was the nose tackle. But the guy who plays in a 4-3 front, whether it's an under or an over, the guy who's occupying that 1-tech, that's the dude that you would consider your nose tackle.
Got it.
he's the nose of the defense is essentially what it means. So, yeah, so that's and again, I think they did that with Kenny because he's always been known as our best defensive tackle. And I think what happened personally was they said, you know what? He's gonna garner the most attention in terms of double teams. So if that's gonna happen, why not we have him play a little touch spy and let him eat that double team, but protect the run gap a little more aggressively and also prevent the quarterback from scrambling. So we know that's going to happen. Now let's run an ET stun off the opposite side and get two guys freed up to try to get pressure on the quarterback. And it happened at times, right? You've seen it in Tennessee when we just absolutely freaking dominated, right? Yep. But that's Tennessee. So that's like saying, hey, look, we picked on the smallest kid on the playground, right? That's not necessarily the thing you want to go around bragging about. So, all right, next you got Derek Harmon out of Oregon. His three strengths it lists is, and they had a big detailed write-up here, but what I did was I took the time to just say, hey, look, let's really dumb it down because we would never get through it if we're reading a paragraph per player. Derek Harmon out of Oregon wins with hand fighting, mauls in the trenches, explodes off the line. Most of the line was 3-tech, aligned over the guard, exploiting burst and hands. So there's Derek Harmon, a 3-tech. Derek Harmon's one of the better pass rushing defensive tackles in this draft, no doubt. And if we find Derek Harmon on our board, he is actually in the 26th spot for us. So that's someone, Tim, there's a decent chance he's going to be there. But we know how teams, they truly, truly love the pass rush in the league. So I could see it being something like that where they would, hey, let's draft him a little earlier, just like edges go a little earlier because obviously they're pass rush specialists. So got a couple questions here in the chat. It's hard for me to keep up with the chat as I'm reading this. I'll try to do my best, guys. Ben Holden, where does Kenny best fit in the 4-3? I think that, if you listen to Jeff Hafley talk, he spoke very, very, very highly of Kenny Clark, which I've got to take that stuff into consideration. Like I can't be that dude that's just, well, he's just lying for Kenny. When you listen to what the coaches say and then you turn on the tape, it did kind of make sense. His numbers were horrible, guys, horrible. His run stop percentage was pretty good. Now, we had a good run defense, right? So what would that suggest? If you see him playing touch spy and then you see his run stop percentage be pretty significant and his pass rush is down all of a sudden, what's that tell you? That was probably by design. Yeah. Now, if you just want to, not that you're doing this, Ben, if the casual Packer fan just wants to bitch and moan about the pass rush is horrible, they don't know what they're doing, blah, 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 and not actually look at the tape and try to understand here's what they were trying to accomplish, then you could kind of come away going, Kenny's washed. I think his best football is behind him, don't get me wrong. But where does he best fit in? I would love to have seen him in a 3-tech. But the problem is Devontae Wyatt is not a nose. So what you did was you asked the highest paid guy in Kenny Clark, hey, you take on the hardest job, which is taking on the double team and helping stop the run, and let's let Devontae Wyatt try to maximize on single blocks. Does that make sense? So that's, yep. I think, to answer your question, Kenny would probably best fit in a 3-tech. However, with his career starting to wind down a little bit as he's approaching 30, which honestly is like 33 for him because he came in the league so young, then I could kind of see why you would want, hey, look, let's just throw him in the 1-tech, let him hold the point of attack, and let Devontae Wyatt, whose strength, and that's the whole goal as a coach, is put your players in the best position to succeed. So,
and put young talent around a veteran so that when that veteran rides off into the sunset, you've got plug and play, and the ball rolls forward. I think that's what they're trying to do long term.
All right. Brambo says, I'd rather not think of TJ. I'm not sure what you meant by that, Brambo, but when I read it, here's what I thought. I'd rather not think of it too, because I wanted him back for a decent amount right now. Whatever he got, was it $7.5 million, something like that?
Yeah, Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be willing to pay that, but if we could have got him back much cheaper, he actually had a higher pressure percentage than Kenny Clark. But the problem there is, when you think about it, when they were both on the field together, both Kenny Clark and TJ Slaton, if they ever were, who was garnering the double team? It was Kenny.
It was Kenny,
right?
Yeah.
And TJ Slaton, like I said, led all defensive tackles on our team, if I remember correctly. No, he didn't lead. He was higher than Kenny Clark in pressure percentage. I think Devontae Wyatt actually led in pressure percentage. So there you go with that. Cool. I think we're good there. Okay, let's move it along. Kenneth Grant, he's one of the guys that we keep talking about. Kenneth Grant is significantly higher than Derek Harmon on our board. Derek Harmon has a grade. Well, let's just go by slot. He's 26th on the board. Kenneth Grant is 16th on our board. You know what I'm going to do? Let me switch this up. This might make it a little bit easier. Let me take this off. I'm going to put the board up. So it's a little more interactive for you guys in terms of following along with what I'm talking about here. Okay. And then we'll just read off of the other one so you're not just seeing three lines. So Kenneth Grant stuffs the run, generates interior pressure, plays with high effort. You see, we already met with Kenneth Grant. He's in the 16th spot on our board and has a grade of 19.7, low number wins, of course. It says most aligned 3-tech, but it says, this is one of those we're talking about, it says nose tackle anchoring directly over the center. So in their base, he played a nose, okay? That's what we were talking about with, I went through and added 3-tech in because the majority of his snaps were in the B gap. However, when they were in their base defense, he did play nose. So that's the perfect example right there is Kenneth Grant on the list there in the 16th spot. Next on the list is Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Some people are a lot higher on him than I am. Our board has Tyleik Williams in the 39 spot, okay? And his, it says he controls blockers, disrupts passing lanes, holds the point, right? His most aligned was 3-tech, but in parentheses, shading the center using size to dominate. So that's another one. Majority of the snaps 3-tech, but he probably played nose in the defense.
He's not a pass rusher. Definitely going to help you out more in the, if you're looking for a big old immovable object in the run fit, that's probably your guy, but pass rush is not his strength.
Yeah. So again, on our board, we've got DL1, meaning 1-tech. However, the majority of his snaps were in the B gap. That's why it's, we'll do a deeper dive on that as we get closer to the draft, and especially as the Packers draft a defensive tackle. I'm sure they'll draft at least one. We'll make sure we get all that information to you. Okay, look, he may have played more 3-tech snaps. However, he was, he was at the nose or at the one or the shade, what they call shade. Shade is basically the inside shoulder of the center. So imagine you got the center, and if you're even perfectly in the A gap between the guard and the center, that's what you call a 1-tech, okay? Typically, if you're on the inside shoulder of an offensive lineman, then you would go 1-eye or what have you. If you're on the inside shoulder of the center, we call that shade. He's just playing the shading, the inside shoulder of the center. So Tyleik Williams, another guy to watch for. Shamar Turner from Texas A&M, versatile alignment, pursues quarterbacks, sheds blocks well. Those are his positives. Most aligned was 3-tech over the guard, though often flexed to 5-tech due to versatility. So Shamar Turner, let me get him up here real quick and see exactly where he's at on our board. So he's significantly lower on our board. I just listed 3-tech for him so we would know he's somewhat versatile. But he's in the 187 spot for us, Tim. And the reason being is that 2024 PFF grade was cheeks.
Yep.
Do you have his PFF grade up or no?
I do. 59.4 in 2024. Yeah, that is woof. Yikes.
Yeah, that's pretty hideous there, man.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's Shamar Turner again in the 187 spot, but he's versatile. I guarantee you a team will see him and go, hey, that's a little extra value there, because he can line up pretty much everywhere. Vernon, I hope I'm saying this right. How would you say that, Tim? Was that be Broughton or Broughton, you think?
Let me see here. I can't read. Where are we at? Vernon.
It's Broughton. I keep forgetting you can't see this.
Broughton? Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I think it would be Broughton. Who cares, right?
Who?
Okay. Let me just put the list back up for you. There you go. So it says
I would say Broughton. Vernon Broughton out of Texas.
Got it. Penetrates gaps, stops the run, rushes with power. Okay. It says most aligned was 3-tech, aligned over the guard, utilizing quickness. Okay. So Vernon Broughton, we've got listed as a 3-tech. If you want to take a look at his PFF information,
86.1 last year. There's the guy. And 338 B gap snaps.
There you go.
Let's see.
Definitely
6'4", 305. I don't have an age on him. Hopefully he fits the Goody threshold.
Yeah. we're going to do defensive line next. I'm going to do that this afternoon when I get a little bit of time, and we'll see who meets the threshold there. So we'll have those that information on the board as well. But yeah, 13th at his position in terms of highest graded player according to PFF. The PFF big board did not have him on their big board at the time. Do they have him now, Tim, on the big board by chance?
Let's see, Broughton. I just had him pulled up.
I'm sorry,
PFF's got him 78th
on the big board.
On theirs, yeah.
Wow. See, when we took the information down, they didn't have him on it. This is the dilemma I'm faced with, guys. Is we put the grades in as quick as possible, or the rankings in as quick as possible. So the end of the college football season is what had the most impact on our board, right? Essentially the tape. What was going on at the time, as opposed to now we've sat for 3 months and fallen in love with a guy because we watched the tape 500 times.
Or we watched Senior Bowl highlights too much or something. Yeah.
However, the fact that he wasn't listed at all, and then he's 157 on the consensus big board, and he was 13th in PFF grade, I feel like we need to put that number into our board. So I'm going to do that. Tim, again, what was his ranking one more time on the PFF big board?
78th, 7-8.
All right, 78. So I'm going to pop that in. His grade goes from an 85 to an 82. It didn't move much, but it did move a little bit. Actually, that puts him up about 5 spots around the 103 spot now. So Vernon Broughton, we now have a PFF big board grade for him. Appreciate that, Tim. Thank you, man.
You bet.
Next, one of my boys here from the Irish, we got Howard Cross out of Notre Dame. He's positive, plugs gaps, pressures consistently, uses leverage well. Most of the line was 3-tech, but look in parentheses, nose tackle, anchor in the middle with leverage. So in the base defense, he played nose. What do you have on Howard Cross out of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
I don't have him pulled up. Let's see if we can.
He's on the second page of their big board. I noticed that he's way down the list, which is wild because he was actually fairly high last year. Like going into the college football season, he was ranked pretty high.
All right, I got him. 282 on PFF's big board.
Okay.
Graded out 71.0 last year. Mr. Availability, though, doesn't look like he's missed. I think he's missed one game in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, 474 B-gap snaps. Yeah. Here's a guy for sure.
Yeah. And here's what's really cool about Howard Cross. Many people don't know that, like, he's sitting in the 216 spot for us. I'm going to leave our PFF big board grade or number in here, Tim. We had him at 225 at the end of the college football season. So he's sank since then, right? He dealt with injuries last year, if I remember correctly. So we probably do need to add a red box in there. Let me do that real quick while I'm thinking about it, just to be certain that we don't forget that.
He's going to be 24 his rookie season, though. So do we have a Goody DiCaprio emoji we can put on these guys too?
What can we do? Should we have a Titanic emoji or something, maybe something like that?
We're gonna have to shrink we'll have to shrink this one, turn it into a emoji.
You know what we could do? We could do maybe, and the threshold encompasses this too, so we probably shouldn't because it does take into consideration age, I believe. If not, I need to change that. I need to add that. I probably do need to add the age in there as well. But we could do something like if they're under the age of 23, do like a baby emoji or something. You know what I mean?
Pacifier.
Yeah, like a pacifier. Be perfect. There you go. So we may do something like that. But I'm going to add that red box into Howard Cross, and we'll double check. Anybody in the chat, let us know Howard Cross injury history. And I know he was injured last year, but I'm not sure. I know he was injured last year. I'm not sure if he's completely healed up, if he even performed at the combine or anything. I haven't looked at that in a while. I try not to show favoritism to Notre Dame and Kentucky. So anytime I see something on that player, I'm like, nope, not doing it. Not going to talk about it because they don't want to hear about it. And I'm just a Kentucky fan. I'm just a Notre Dame fan. So I try to keep it moving in that regard. Cam Jackson out of Florida. All right. His strengths, Tim, are, and it might be Cameron Jackson. It might be what they have it listed at. Stuffs interior runs, holds ground, disrupts with size. Most of the line was 3-tech. However, shading the center, using mass to clog lanes. So he was definitely a nose in the base, but did play the majority of his snaps as a 3-tech. We have him in the 242 spot on our board, and I imagine actually it looks like his 24 grade probably wasn't too bad. He graded out 88th, Tim. What do you got
Yeah.
on him?
Cameron Jackson or Cameron, I think it's Cameron Jackson.
Makes sense.
77.4 grade in 2024.
Got it.
PFF's got him 210 on their board.
Okay. Got it. Appreciate that, man. And again, the one thing that does stick out to me with Cam Jackson is 0 on the RAS. Did not test well at all. So keep that in mind. Next is our boy Deion Walker. My man, he's sinking out of sight, Tim. And I tell you, when people talked about, was it Tavondre Sweat they talked about last night, Tim? Like that he scored in the threes as well.
Yep.
And it's like, boy, he ended up being a pretty damn good football player this year. So who knows, man? At the right round, maybe Deion Walker does get taken, and we look up and go, "I'll be darned, there he is." That's the Tavondre Sweat this year. But
I think that's a trend you see with these bigger body guys, right? Like regardless of the position group, usually, but especially on the D line, you get that height, that weight, the bulk, but the mobility and the athletic ability tends to suffer a little bit. Sometimes you're just big for no reason. So that's a guy that depending on how things go for him, if he develops really well, he could be a freak in the NFL. So, RAS isn't everything at this point, but it is something you have to consider. And I, for one, would not be mad if he ended up in Green Bay, but I just think the likelihood with that low RAS of him being drafted by the Packers it's just not there.
Significantly lower for sure. Deion Walker's 3 strengths it has listed here: overwhelms with size, stops the run cold. I like that they threw cold in there, and pushes the pocket. Most aligned 3 tech, however, nose tackle dominating with sheer size over the center. He played last year, or 2023, he played 3 tech, he played 0, he played 1. They put him wide 9 once. I was going, whoa, what's that big fella doing way out there? And they were just exploiting the weakness.
Wow.
Kentucky's defense was significantly better in 23. And could you imagine being the weak tackle, like a right tackle of a small school, looking out there and going, oh, this is a freight train coming? So, again, a little bit of versatility, but I think everybody would agree, especially with the very, very low athletic score, you're going to want to try to play him at nose and just eat space, I imagine. So, next you got Alfred Collins out of Texas. Versatile disruptor, penetrates quickly, battles blockers, says most aligned 3 tech over the tackle, often slid inside to 3 tech. So it sounds like he played a lot over the tackle, meaning a 4 to a 4-eye, but would kick into a 3. Maybe he played a little 5 tech on the outside shoulder as well. But Alfred Collins out of Texas, Tim.
19 snaps over there outside. But yeah, B-gap, 299 snaps, graded out 87.2 in 2024. Another guy that seems to be available all the time. Doesn't look like he missed a lot of games since 2022. 6'5", 320. 23 and a half years old, though. Again, Goody DiCaprio factor.
There you go. And, 9th at his position in 2024, according to PFF. Daniel Jeremiah had him in the 50 spot. 33rd team had him 42. Dane Brugler had 47. We've got him in the 43 spot. And it does have the cheese emoji. So if we end up with the old googly eyes tonight, with it being an athletic threshold meet, that might be a dude that's on the Packers radar there. Maybe a little later, maybe if he falls to the second, who knows? Maybe that's that surprise pick at 23. We go, whoa, Kenneth Grant's on the board, and they went with Alfred Collins. It could be something like that. For sure.
Yep.
And Carly, you just jump in. Any questions, comments, you just fire away. We're going to keep rolling along here.
Carly, you've got Howard Cross, right? Injury info?
Yeah, I only could find for this last season, but it looks like he missed the final 3 games of the regular season. It was an ankle sprain, and then I guess in the postseason, tweaked it and had to go out of a game. But it seems like that's the only main injury that he's had, but it was kind of significant, at least, that it reoccurred.
Got it. So we've got the red box on 24 just to throw a flag. Hey, look into it, right?
Yep.
Type of thing. So, and it doesn't mean that someone like that isn't draftable. What it does mean, though, is if you've got a cluster of players, let's say there's 4 players in the same tier, and you got 2 defensive tackles, you're saying those 2 guys are pretty much about the same in terms of the grade. This dude's got a red box. Let's look into that. He had an ankle injury. He seems healthy, but this dude's just as good, and he doesn't have that ankle injury that might nag him. Let's go with him. That's how guys end up falling too. So,
especially in an early round scenario, right? I mean, it's definitely going to impact your decision to take him in the first or second.
For
Absolutely.
sure. Clayton, do you have any way on your board of distinguishing the tiers, or is that going to be on your big horizontal board where you
Yeah.
organize everybody by the tiers they'd be in a position?
Yeah, on the horizontal board, that's the whole purpose of the horizontal board. What you'll see is you'll notice a pocket of players here at the position, and then it'll drop down, or it might be a one, a solo, another solo, another solo. So it's going to move in increments of 5 points on our board. So you technically can tell the tiers on our board. If you look at the grade over to the far right, the final grade, it's basically from 0 to, actually we got a negative on the board now with Ashton Gianti. So anything less than a 0, that's the first tier, and then from 0 to 4.9, that's tier 2. From 5 to 9.9, right, is going to be tier 3, so on and so forth. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and on the horizontal board, that's the whole purpose. Is like it really talks to you. The board shows you, holy cow. Here's let me give you a good example. The graphic that Ryan shared the other day with the data he's collected on this year's draft, right? When you look at this, picture that being a horizontal board on the left side. Here's the only problem, though. Instead of the rounds running from right to left, you would do the positions at the top and the grade running on the left side. Okay, and I'm not trying to critique the way Ryan did this. I think it's an awesome graphic. But if you wanted to do it more along the lines of a horizontal board, with it being first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, with the rounds, that's kind of the placeholder for the value of the player. So if you did the positions at the top of the page and then you did the rounds running vertically on the left, you would be able to see the clusters of the value along the way as well. It's kind of, you're still getting it here, but like for this example, on a horizontal board, what you would notice here is in the first round toward the top of the board, you get 7 edge defenders. You see what I'm saying? And that would kind of stick out from, say, the one interior offensive line that made the board. I'm sure that's probably Booker, to be honest with you, now that I think about it, because everybody's real high on Booker there in the first round. So.
And that's actually that was Nick McSwain actually was asking about kind of the depth of various positions, and I told him about that picture. So I'm really glad that you brought it back up. Is that picture in the Patreon, that graphic, or you think Ryan will let you put it in there?
I could ask him. You know what? Check out his Patreon group too. He may have put it in there. He tweeted it out actually, so I'm sure he doesn't mind people having it. If you go to his Twitter, that's where you can find it. If you go to pack_daddy. On Twitter, make sure you're giving him a follow. It's an excellent follow. And if you search through media there, you'll see some funny stuff. Let me tell you, you'll be catching but you should be able to see that graphic there as well. So yeah, I would hate to be like, hey guys, here's this graphic, and him be the one that created it. Let's make sure we give credit to people that do stuff. Obviously, I lean on him for a lot during the draft process. He's, again, the reason I got into podcasting was because he invited me onto the network, and I used to, still do listen to his podcast every day, but that was the one that was like, okay, he's going to have a podcast every single day, very diligent, and the draft is something he's very passionate about. So TJ Sanders next on the list here.
Here's the guy.
Tim. I think Tim likes this dude. Rushes with agility, anchors versus the run, plays with power. His most alignment is 3-tech, over the guard, leverage and agility and strength. So is he a true 3-tech? Is that what you're seeing there, Tim?
Sanders is a true 3-tech who wins with linear and lateral quickness to shoot gaps and disrupt. Let's go.
We got him in the 44 spot, too. What was his PFF grade there in 2024, Tim? You got that?
Let's see. 82.4.
Oh, yeah. That's solid.
Yep.
The Packers have not met with him yet, but I would not be surprised if they do. However, take it for what it is. With the RASs in the first round, right? Not saying that he's worthy of a first-round pick, being in the 44 spot. Our board would suggest second-round pick, but his RAS is in the 8s last I checked. So not that athletic freak that you think the Packers would take at the first round, but still looks like a solid player there at 44 for sure.
21.6 years old, so just turning 22 his rookie year. So he fits the age requirements for sure.
There you go. This next one's very interesting because the Packers actually showed interest. And I've heard this said 13 different ways. I've heard Aeneas Peebles. I've heard Aeneas Peebles. I've heard one that sounded like a dirty word that I ain't going to repeat, but we'll just call him – I'm going to call him Aeneas. Is that cool? Aeneas
Sure.
Peebles. All right. and maybe even Peebles isn't right. I don't know. You guys help me out in the chat here.
We'll know him if he gets drafted, right?
Yes,
we'll know how to say his name then.
Sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. Looked like somebody got the old. All right.
Yeah. Banning robots, no problem.
Hey, there you go. Appreciate that, Tim. Explodes off the snap, disrupts plays, pursues relentlessly. Most aligned is 3-tech, over the guard using speed to penetrate. So they see him as a true 3-tech. When you don't have that in that parentheses there, right? When you don't have that extra here that says like nose tackle, that means they're probably a true 3-tech in terms of this little article we put together. So lining up over the 3-tech, he's in the 104 spot for us. Tim, I know you've got the 24 grade. The 23 grade, he was ranked 13th at his position. What do you have for the 24 grade for Peebles out of Virginia Tech?
89.1. 31 hurries. 3 hits, 3 quarterback sacks, 384 snaps in the B gap. Played over the tackle, also played outside the tackle, played a little A gap. Going to be 24 though. Again, the age factor, but his numbers are just they're right there. They're right where you want them to be. Yeah,
no doubt about it. So again, if you look at our board, the Packers have met with him. Wasn't a top 30 visit, but they met with him. He went from 461st at his position in 22 all the way to 13th, and then from 13th to 7th. Somehow the PFF Big Board had him at 170 at the moment. The Consensus Big Board had him at 146, and it looks like he scored a 7 in the 7s on RAS last I checked.
115 right now on PFF's Big Board, so he's definitely moved up a little.
Perfect example right here, right?
Yep.
Of a guy that no more football was played, and he moved up 60 spots, 50-some spots, whatever it was. So, yeah, there you go. There's Peebles. Next, Darius Alexander. Here's another dude that many people are interested in for sure. Darius Alexander on our board, if I can find him, is in the 79 spot. All right. And he's one of these guys, Tim, that I'm going to drop this down and show you guys what I'm talking about. This is a perfect example of when you get a guy with a bunch of bonuses on our board, it really sticks out to you. So look at Darius Alexander here, right? And you'll notice him in the 79 spot. So you see 109th at his position, 43rd at his position, 4th at his position. The PFF Big Board 175, the Consensus Big Board 193. Those don't look like they belong. I guarantee you he's higher on boards than that now. But here's what I was talking about. Look at the Senior Bowl bonus, 5-point bonus, right? That -5. Then the RAS -5. That's literally a bullseye going, hey, this dude right here has shown a lot of promise in the offseason and all the opportunities he's been given on a national stage to go out there and show, hey, look, I belong. I guarantee you he's moved up that PFF Big Board.
Yeah, he's 32 on the PFF Big Board. Third out of 895 D linemen. But I gotta do it again. He's going to be 25. He'll be 25 as a rookie. So
that's interesting. So just a big discrepancy there between our board, where we had him on the PFFB board at the end of the season, and now. I'm going to leave it alone, guys. I've always done my board like this, so we're going to keep it where it's at. That way it's a little different than others, and we'll roll with it. But, yeah, he's somebody that's definitely interesting out of Toledo. All right, let's get back to the list. And we'll get ready to wrap up here in a second. Again, this was asked by a listener, so we just wanted to run through and kind of give everybody an idea. And you know what? We don't have to – we'll just go rapid fire what they asked for here on these last few, so we don't have to look them all up. Tim, we'll get ready to shut down the show here. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland, stops a run, rushes with speed, plays smart. His most aligned was 1-tech, over the guard, exploiting speed with IQ, I should say. Joshua Farmer is next out of Florida State. I think the Packers met with him at some point. Anchors the line, disrupts with power, tackles consistently, most aligned, 3-tech, but it also in parentheses, nose tackle, holding the middle with strength. So a nose tackle in their base defense for sure. Next, Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, rushes with speed, stuffs a run, plays with range. Most aligned was 3-tech, over the guard, using athleticism to pressure. So that's a true 3-tech, it looks like.
Okay, hey, so Clayton, just real quick, what is play? Can we translate that into like actual English? What does plays with range actually mean anyway?
When I hear plays with range, what I think of is someone who can get linear. Okay, meaning he it may mean he's got good length, like he's got a good wingspan, that type of thing, but he covers space. So, like most guys, if you're playing on the defensive line, you're kind of a point of attack, control your gap type guy. When I hear plays with range, I think of someone like Devontae Wyatt, who, put it this way, you guys remember last year, this immediately what came to mind. The Jacksonville Jaguars game, right? Remember when they blitzed Edgerrin Cooper and he strip sacked Trevor Lawrence and the ball went flying? Who came in and scooped up the fumble? It was Devontae Wyatt. Did you see how he got linear and then shielded his body on the offensive player, the offensive lineman, to recover? That's what I think of when someone plays linear. That and chasing down run plays. I'll tell you somebody else who's linear and plays with range, and you've seen it last year because he was doing a lot of touch spying, was Kenny. Kenny, several times, there was a running back that thought all the big hog mollies are behind me, and they went to hit a cutback lane, and Kenny clocked them. And I could only imagine what that feels like. So that's what I think of when I hear plays with range. Tim, do you agree with that, or is there maybe another way you see that when you hear plays with range?
No, I think that's pretty accurate, man. Because Carly's right. it kind of leaves things open to interpretation, but I'm there with you. I think that's pretty accurate.
Got it. CJ West, Indiana, controls blockers, stops interior runs, pushes steadily. Most aligned was one tech, shading the center, anchoring against the run. So there's you a true nose tackle, right?
Yep.
For sure.
83.8 in 2024.
Whew. What do we got, CJ West? Let me look at this real quick, and then we'll get ready to wrap up like a Baptist preacher over here.
69 overall on PFF's big board.
So he's 69. Guess where he was at the end of the year? 160.
Wow.
It's crazy. We've got him in the 107 spot. There's some of these guys, man, if we put their true PFF board grading in right now.
Oh man, it would screw up the whole board.
There would be we would have a bunch of elite players all of a sudden. And that's why we do it this way. I'm telling you, I love it. He also scored a 5 or a 9+ on the RAS. So, and the Packers have met with him as well. So CJ West is a dude that, the 107 spot, if the right guy don't fall to them at 23, Tim, at 3 tech, or at defensive tackle rather, don't be surprised if in the second or third round they pull the trigger there. They're going to get a defensive tackle, at least one. No doubt about it.
For sure.
So all right. Let's see. Next on the list, actually that's it. So these alignments are based on film breakdowns, scouting reports, and their primary roles in their college defenses. Primary roles is the key words there. Obviously, they're thinking base defense, right? Some players like Shamar Turner and Alfred Collins have notable versatility, but I've listed their most frequent alignments. So, again, you guys can go check that out over at our Patreon group. That's where we've got that and a bunch of other write-ups. We actually just did the athletic thresholds for quarterback and wide receiver, and we'll cover that a little later today on the evening show. Tim, you're not going to be with us tonight, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm date miking it up tonight.
Let's go, my man. Hey, way more important than hanging out here. You ain't got to worry about having them papers served to you like I got to battle every night. You know what I'm saying? So, based off what we covered here, and if you guys want to join the Patreon group, patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access, we have people ask us all the time, how can we support the show? That's how you do it. You join that group, $3 a month, and you get access to all this extra information. There's also a link in the podcast description. If you're listening on podcast, just click on info. And
there's a code right here too.
Yeah, scan the QR code in the upper right. You also get access to our big board that we've been showing here on the screen as well. We do giveaways. We're going to be doing a giveaway here real soon. I got to decide which one of these autographed cards are going to be given away, but we are mailing out 2 autographed LVN Lucas Van Ness jerseys, just like this one right here. They were just to members of our Patreon group that we do a drawing about once every 2 weeks, spin the wheel, put everybody's name on it, and whoever it lands on, you get a piece of memorabilia. So it's a way to support the show, which is what people were asking for. And I want to clarify one more time, the cheapest tier, that $3 tier, qualifies you for everything. The only reason there's a $5 and a $10 is because people were reaching out and saying, hey, how can we support more? Because they don't want the show to go away. And listen, I know how that feels. There's been times in the past I had a podcast I liked, a YouTube channel I liked, all of a sudden they disappear. I'm like, what the heck? right? Because it gets expensive to keep everything up and keep it running the way you want it to. And sometimes you got to pay the wife off because take time away. I mean, that's right. You got to date mark it up, and that costs money. So, anyway, Carly, you got any parting thoughts? Anything? Any questions, comments off what we covered?
No, I missed Good Morning Lambeau. It's super nice to be here and hang out with you guys and the coffee and just, yeah, I like these mornings.
I'll tell you, it sounds silly, but I'm my sharpest in the morning. The evening show, my brain is fried. I'm stuttering. I can't hardly think straight. Me and Tim talked about this, man. Once you get woke up, it's like the mind is at its sharpest first thing in the morning. For me, anyway. I don't know.
For me, it's more like I'm kind of like that guy.
All right. Really, really appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. Again, guys, any of this information we share, if you see something that conflicts with it, like, no, I don't think that's right. I think he lined up here. I think that athletic threshold's wrong. Let's all communicate, especially in the Patreon group. Communicate in the Patreon group, and we'll get the most detailed, accurate information we possibly can to make sure that we're all best prepared for the draft. And I can't wait for the draft. It's going to be a blast. It's funny, too. Yesterday, Emilio said something. He said, man, the board's almost finished, isn't it? And I went, yeah. I'm thinking, no. We just getting started, baby. We ain't even started on the horizontal board yet, and we've still got a ton of information to put in, too. But in terms of what he was really talking about, and I'm just kind of joking there, is like Greg Cosell, we're starting to add in his bonuses now to the board, which we kind of treat like a senior scout. That's pretty much the last column that we had to fill out. And we may change it up next year. We may go with like Todd McShay or someone like that. I know Drew had mentioned to me that Todd McShay had one of the most accurate big boards here recently. So anyway, it's always evolving, and that's you got to be willing to admit when you make mistakes, and there's always ways that you can make things better. So that's what we're trying to do here. But appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. Feel free to share it with your friends if you have any. If you don't, you got some friends here, and it's pretty sad if we're your friends, to be honest with you. So, there's you go through this chat, Tim, there's some questionable characters.
Just a few.
Appreciate everybody. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you tonight.
And we go.
Bye, guys.